to the studio at Waycross Community Media. We have some special guests today so we can learn more about something coming up in Forest Park that we want to make sure that you know about. We have today in the studio with us Rich Surace from Energy Alliances, the COO. We have another representative from Energy Alliances, Dan Dieters, and we also have Wright Gwynn of the Forest Park Environmental Awareness Office. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
And the reason that you are here, we have up on our screen here, is so that we can talk about energy aggregation. There is an issue on the ballot in November for Forest Park residents about energy aggregation, and we want to make sure that they know exactly what that means, exactly what the benefits are, and what it doesn't mean, and things like that. So thank you so much for coming in and making sure we have the chance to talk about this.
Right, thank you.
Thanks.
So let's start. Very simply, we're saying energy aggregation. These are not words we use every day, usually, except you, because this is your business. So we want to look at defining that. What does that mean? So first of all, let's define the word aggregation. What does that mean? Can you define that for us?
Sure. So really, an aggregation is a way for a governmental entity, whether it be a city, township, village, county, to be able to pool all the usage inside of that community and to be able to shop for a price. Typically, in those cases, a community can get better rates, better terms and conditions than if the residents would try to go out and shop on their own. It also gives a way for the residents to have a little bit of support from the community, that the programs and terms and conditions have been vetted compared to going out and looking at the hundreds of offers that may be listed out there.
Mm-hmm. That's an important thing, because things will get offered, but unless this is actually your industry, then it's hard to understand what they're offering sometimes.
Correct.
So I want to restate that in a really simplistic way. We love to buy in bulk because we know we get a better price if we're buying toilet paper, if we're buying candy bars. I'm just thinking let's think snacks. Okay. We like to buy in bulk. But when you think about buying your gas or your electricity, how does one little house buy in bulk? And something big like Procter & Gamble, they can buy in bulk. And an aggregation just means a whole bunch of houses in your town, organized by your city and through something like Energy Alliances to help out with that, can gather together and buy their gas and electricity in bulk and get a better rate. So that's just, is that accurate though?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty simple way to put it.
Okay, I don't want to simplify it so much that it doesn't even work anymore. Right. So that's where the government part of aggregation comes in, is how else do you get a whole neighborhood of houses to get together and be able to buy energy together? It's not something you can just bring home and give a package to everybody in the house, neighborhood kind of thing like that. Excellent. So the first thing to know about this is it's just a way to buy in bulk. The next thing to know about this would be that you don't have to be part of it.
That's correct.
There's a way to opt out. So can you describe that a little bit?
Sure. So if this would pass on the ballot in November, and we would go through the entire process, any eligible resident or small business would have the chance to opt out of the program. The program that's been presented and will be presented to the residents, again if it passes, would be an opt-out aggregation. So those eligible residents and small businesses will get a letter in the mail, and they will have a certain window of time to say if they don't want to be in it, that they can either send in the tear-off at the bottom of the letter or call in to an 800 number and say, I don't want to be in. And at that point, they've opted out.
And so there are very specific steps. They're easy to understand. And the default will be, yes, you get to be part of this bulk purchase of energy that will save you some money. But if you don't want to be in it, there's an easy way to get out.
Correct.
And you can get out also, though, throughout the contract, anytime throughout the contract, not only at the beginning when we're about to initiate the program, but if you say, yeah, let's give it a shot, and let's say 6 months down the road, no, I just don't feel comfortable with it, then you could pick up the phone and call and terminate that and go back to Duke without any penalties or fees.
That's correct.
So you can get out at any time. That's why it's called an opt-out. At the beginning, it used to be that there were penalties or fees, or you only had a certain time that you could do that at the beginning of each contract. But now, with the evolution of these programs, and I think y'all kind of spearheaded that you can now get out almost at any time that you want to get out of the contract and go back to the original energy provider, which would be Duke.
And that's important because if someone finds out about it later and wasn't sure they were going to opt out to begin with, and is there any penalty if they decide to opt out once they've already wind up in there? Do they have any penalty?
No, there's no early termination fees of any kind. Also, if someone did not initially get in the program, they can come and join the program later without any fee. So
that's really important.
So basically, what Energy Alliance's goal is to protect the residents of Forest Park from any terms and conditions like we said before, to make sure that they don't get any early termination fee, any join fee, any other kind of fees, and they can pretty much, once they get the opt-out letter, they can decide at that point, or they can try it for a while and say, okay, I'll get out later, or if they didn't initially get in, they can say, you know what, I should be in this, and I'll join, and it won't cost anything.
I actually want to mention that's one of the things that Forest Park gets from working with Energy Alliances. When you look at independent contracts that they come to your house and they offer you great deals, and I know we'll probably look at that a little more in a bit, but a lot of times, almost all of them, they look really, really great when they give you a paper and they say, but look at that gas rate, but look at that electric rate. But there will almost always be an early termination fee that's very high. There'll be some kind of joint fee or things like that. By working with Energy Alliances, that really helps make sure that this aggregation with Forest Park, you know how to look for those terms. You know how to make sure the right things are in there and the wrong things are not in there.
With the folks coming around to your house or the things you get on the phone, you have to understand that rate might sound really, really good at the beginning, but you got to watch that early termination fee. And then at the end of the term, you got to watch what they're going to put you into next. That's one of those things that 1 month or 2 months that you didn't catch at the end of that term can destroy all the savings you had. That doesn't happen here in an aggregation. What'll happen is we'll do a defined term, and at the end of that term, if Forest Park wants to renegotiate another term, that's fine. If they don't, everybody just goes back to the utility. They don't get stuck into some crazy rate.
And that's the other benefit, is that you're watching it.
Yep.
I have to admit, I do not look at my utility bill every single month. I said it. And a lot of us don't. So it's important to know that, oh, thankfully, someone else is watching this and keeping an eye on it and knowing when the term ends. And your office is looking at this and keeping an eye on it and knowing when it ends. So that's a big help.
Right, and we have tried this a couple times before, and it did not pass. This time we want to make sure that people understand like you said, what aggregation is, what the goals are in the aggregation program, so that they can make a really good educated decision once they go to the ballots in November, that they will understand what they're voting for. And that's something that we feel like wasn't part of the deal the last 2 times. So we encourage, after this, if there's any kind of questions, to either contact the Forest Park Environmental Awareness Program to get the information. And if I don't know the answers, I will go directly to these guys because they're the experts, and that's why we got them to help us. So this is strictly an informational campaign to let people know this is how it works, and these are the possible benefits that might be created from it.
So let's talk about who is eligible for this kind of program. Talking about the benefits of being able to buy energy in bulk. So who will get to do this if this passes?
Sure. So there's kind of 2 parts to it. There's that initial opt-out window, and then we could talk about the program as a whole. So in that initial sweep of who would get a letter, it would be those who are currently still on Duke's standard service offer, those who are not part of the purchase of income, so on the PIP program, and people who have not selected another supplier. The way the rules are written is that if somebody has already chosen to go with somebody else, they've already entered into their contract and they shouldn't be in, because they may have termination fees or other things. So that would be that initial window. But as we said, kind of eligible over time, anybody who is with somebody else, they could opt in at another time. But so it's really just that first window that defines who would get the letter on that initial sweep.
So if they've already picked someone else for a program, they do not have to worry that they're going to get scooped out of that and put into this.
That's correct.
They're going to stay in the program they're in. If they want to switch, they'll have that opportunity to make their own decision on that, but they're not going to get automatically scooped out.
Correct.
And that's good, because sometimes people have intentionally chosen a particular thing. So that's good to know. And you mentioned, right, that we have looked at this in Forest Park before.
Right.
Folks didn't fully really know if this was going to be a good idea or not. So why is this, do you think, the time to bring this back up? Why are we bringing this
Well,
back?
the first time that we did it is right when aggregation was the hot and heavy issue of the month.
Yeah.
And a lot of communities were talking about it. It was in the news. And the city council agreed to go ahead and put it on the ballot. But there really wasn't much of a educational effort to explain what this meant. And since it was new, it was hard to understand. And then when you got to the ballot, and if you've ever looked at one of these initiatives written to vote
Yeah.
on, it's hard to understand. And I myself would have had a hard time checking yes on this. And so it went down pretty badly. And then about 6 years ago, we tried it again. And we put a little bit more information out to the public, but I don't think it was a comprehensive what we're trying to do today to make sure that people understand. And it got real close. We had to wait till the next morning. I mean, we were looking at the computer going, is it, isn't it? And we lost
Okay.
by about 0.5%
Okay.
of the vote. And so this time, though, I think what we have going is, are two things. One, people know about it. The majority of communities in Hamilton County are on an aggregation program, whether it's electricity or natural gas. And they're
Yeah.
finding savings through these programs. So it's not a new program. It's not something that, oh my God, I'm not sure what it is. It's been around for, and it has a track record. And the second thing is, it has registered nice savings for a lot of communities. And that's the whole goal of aggregating. So we think now is a good time. I think a lot of people, when we first initially put this out over the internet to get some kind of a feedback from the residents, they came back and said, yeah, what's taking so long? You know, these are the ones that at least spent some time to reply and said, yeah, let's do this. And so that kind of spurred the city council saying, yeah, maybe we should go ahead and put this back, give it one more shot, really give it a good educational front so people understand it. We're not going to say you need to vote for it. We just want them to know how it would affect them.
Yep.
And then let the chips fall where they may.
And the fact that so if this passes, it doesn't mean you have to do it. It just means you can do it.
Right.
Which I think is important. I think most people are excited about the idea of bulk purchasing and getting a better deal on something they have to have at their house. You pretty much have to have electricity and gas. And you talked about now so many communities have it. We have a map. So many communities that have electric aggregation. This is just electric, I think, in this particular map.
Right.
And you can see it's really filled in here. So Forest Park has a lot of examples that it can look at now and say, all right, but I wasn't sure how it's going to go. Now we know. We
Right.
can look at this many communities. We can look at a list, just Hamilton County communities.
And this isn't all of them. These are just
Okay.
the ones that could fit on the screen.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that, you know, like we said earlier, it's cities, villages, townships,
Yeah.
counties, and these are all, not everyone's doing it, of course, but a large portion of these are taking advantage of these aggregation programs and what they can provide.
And that's big. I mean, there's no reason now to think we're not sure how it's going to work. We can see how, like you said, we can see how it's going to look for a small community, for a large community, for a community that has a lot of industry, for a community that's all bedroom community. And all of the communities directly touching Forest Park, I think, have aggregation at this point too. So they can talk to their neighbors.
None of your service changes with any of these. So Duke still gets paid to transmit all the gas and the power, and they charge you for that. That's on your bill. You see that there. If your power goes out, you still call Duke. If you have even billing, that still will apply, and that Duke will do that also. Nothing changes on your bill. Nothing changes with regard to your service. The only thing that will change is the amount we pay. Forest Park residents will pay for energy.
So, and we can look at a sample bill here, because this is what we get. This is not mine.
This is mine.
Okay. Thank you, Ray, for sharing this with you.
Well, my
Sharing this
name's
with
on
us.
it, so I just figured.
Yeah, I just saw that up there. Yes.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to see. We're not going to suddenly start getting two different bills with this.
No.
I think that's something that worries people, is one more thing to keep track of. I know that with an aggregation, also though, you do get a phone number on there. There will be a line up there that says this is where it's coming from, and if you do need to call them, or if you don't want it to come from them anymore, if you want to opt out, that number will be right there. You don't have to, it's too hard to figure out how to get in and how to get out, things like that. That's important.
And you can always call Energy Alliances also.
Yes. And what phone number should they call if they have questions about any of this? Do you want them to call you first, Ray?
You can call
Okay.
me. My office is 595-LAND, which is 5263.
Okay.
And I can relay whatever questions. These guys are awfully busy. They've got other communities that they're looking over and stuff. So if I can answer most of the questions, I will. If not, I will definitely get the right answer from these guys and pass it on to whoever needs it.
And that, I think, is really helpful, because not all of the communities that have an aggregation have someone in their city building that can be the connection that's informed about this. So the fact that they can always call you first, right, and you're local and you're someone right there, and they can walk in and you have office time,
Right.
and they have any questions, and then you have the connections to find out what you don't know off the top of your head.
Exactly. It's a great system, and I encourage anybody, if they're just doing some errands and they have a question and want to drop by, that's great to just sit down and talk. But it's also a great relief to know that I've got backup that I can always go to and say, I am stumped on this. This is a new question. I do not know the answer. And so I'd rather get the right answers. And it might take me a little while, but I would try to get it within the 24 hours and make sure I can get it back to them in 24 hours. Okay, let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
If you look over on the left column, on the top, you'll see Duke Energy and AEP. Those are the two energy companies that are going to be on your electric bill. Okay, and if you see the circles on the right column, there are the two companies. And as we talked before, Duke Energy, if we do this, if it does pass this, and we do have infrastructure with poles and wire company, which will be Duke, and then we have an energy supplier, which in Oxford is AEP, then you'll have two different prices. Okay, hit your slide. Okay, if you look over on the left column again, you'll see how much electricity I use for the month. Go ahead and hit it one more time, and you see where those charges go to. $41 goes right to Duke. Okay, $41.88 goes right to Duke because they're providing the infrastructure to get it to our house.
Sure.
But since we aggregated, we're getting cheaper rates from AEP, and so you can see where those rates, $34.85. So those are the two amounts that you'll pay in one bill to Duke Energy. All right, next slide. Then you look at the price to compare. Duke Energy's price on the top right-hand column is 0.0593, which is what, almost 6 cents a kilowatt hour?
Yes.
Okay, if you look down at the bottom right column, you'll see what AEP is, which is like almost 1 cent less per kilowatt hour. Okay, so click one more time, and if you can see on the very bottom, price to compare, the savings is about, like I said,
$5.23 though is what that
a penny
says.
per kilowatt
yeah.
hour. And
Yeah.
most houses, in the article I read, and y'all could maybe back me up on this or not, it's about 1,000 kilowatt hours.
Roughly.
for a
Yep,
house,
that's
about
the
the average. So I'm saving about $5 a month because I have AEP. It's because it's cheaper than what Duke charges. But you got to keep in mind, I'm not even doing the average kilowatt per household. I'm under that. So, somebody might have that in a week. There's no telling you, but what you have to do is just a little bit of math, and that's how you kind of read your electric bill.
And some of the keys on there is you never have to guess did I save something this month? Because Duke puts the price to compare on there.
Right,
It's
right
always
there.
at the top of that page.
Right.
And then they will put the AEP price on there for that month. So you can look at them. Month to month, you can look at them. If you're someone who does, unlike me, look at it every month, and I will say I have looked at them long enough to know I know what's coming. So that is why. Because I live in a town that has an aggregation and I know it's being managed.
Right.
Those are things that it's nice to know as a Forest Park resident. This is not something you're setting up that's going to happen imaginarily, invisibly behind the scenes, and you're just going to hope they're making the right choices. You can see it every month on your bill.
Every month, and if they have trouble with the bill, they
Yeah.
can bring it to me, and we'll go step by
Yep.
step through it. So that, because I want them to understand. I think it's important that they understand what all those numbers mean.
Absolutely. So let's take some time then and talk about the specifics of Forest Park's energy aggregation proposal. We've talked about all these other communities that have them, but let's look at specifically what's in Forest Park's proposal. What are the goals that we're looking for?
There are two. There are two
Okay.
goals. One is to pursue lower and more stable energy costs. And the track, like we said, these aggregation programs have been going on for almost 20 years now, close to 20
Yeah.
years, 15 years.
Yeah, that's right.
And they have a track record of doing this. So that's our goal, is pursue lower and more stable energy prices. And the second is to offer a choice to residents on what type of fuel they want to use. Is it the fossil fuels, coal, the natural gases, things like that, or renewables, which could be wind. A lot of wind is really growing in different states. And so we'll try to develop a program so they can choose which type of energy they want to use. So those are the two primary goals of the program for Forest Park.
And I'm going to pause on that one for a minute because we have not mentioned that at all up till now, that this is not just buying in bulk and going. There's actually two options, and one of them is to choose a more environmentally aimed goal and to be able to get that kind of renewable energy sources. And if you've been reading a lot or hearing a lot and thinking, I feel like I can't personally make any decisions on that, this actually will give you the choice to do that. So
Right,
that's
exactly.
important. That's important. So there are objectives to help us get to those goals, and how can you explain those to me?
The vast majority of Energy Alliance's programs has a renewable option within the opt-out letter. So you'll see that initially, and you'll see the difference if there is in price, and you'll be able to choose a renewable option, or you'll be able to choose the regular option. So within the full program, there still is that choice of making that green decision if you want to make it.
That's excellent. I really think a lot of people say, I'm hearing, maybe I would pay more if I could make a green choice, but I don't seem to have the option.
Right.
And that is something that isn't even really the main part that we're talking about here, but it becomes an option when Forest Park decides to accept this program.
Right, and the other important objective, other than a choice of what type of energy you want to do, again, and I like to come back, we're going to design it as an opt-out program, so they can get out whenever, without a penalty, without any payments or fees, an opt-out program. But it's important to get everybody in, as many as we can, to lower the price as low as we can.
Sure.
But if people still do not want to participate, that's fine. If it's not what they want to do, or they don't feel comfortable doing it, that is fine. That's the beauty of this opt-out program, that no one's forced to do anything. We're setting this program up kind of like a program of choice. First, you've got to choose to let the city council do it in November, and the ballot. If it's not passed, if those two ballots, ballot 26 and 27, are not passed, then nothing will happen. We'll just keep going the way we are. People might be knocking at your doors. You'll have to do it individually, or you just stay with Duke. Okay? If it does pass, though, if they do choose to pass it, then we go through a process and develop a program, and we present it to the people in 2 public hearings and everything. And then once it starts, the people again have a choice. And the choice is, do I opt out? Do I like this program? Oh, I think it might be good. Let's give it a shot. Okay? And then once they decide that, then they have another choice. Maybe it's too many choices, but I never have a problem with too many choices. And this is, do I want to use brown energy, which is more like the coals and the natural gases, more of the fossil fuels, or the renewables? And so you get to choose on that. So it's a choice whether you want to pass it. It's a choice whether you want to opt in or opt out of it. And then if you want to participate, then you have a choice of what type of energy you want to use. It's a win-win-win.
I know that you have probably heard already up till now some of the same questions. So what are some of the most frequently asked questions that you're hearing from residents that we can talk about here and cover right here?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones is the billing, right? Is what does the program look like? How do we get the bill? We hear it a lot. If I switch, will I still get the same service? I mean, there sometimes is the misconception that if somebody, whether they choose on their own or go through the aggregation, if their power goes out, they'll be the last one to get turned on, and that's just not true. I mean, because of the separation of the distribution, as we show in the bill, sort of the distribution charges and the generation charges, Duke really only makes their money if the power's flowing. So they don't segment people out. If their power goes out, they just get things on. So it's really reminding people that it's that line item on a bill, that everything else stays the same, that the bill's still paid to Duke. If the electric goes out or gas goes out, you still call Duke. It's a very seamless transaction.
And some folks, and I feel like we talked about it, but just to make sure, some folks might say, well, if I vote yes, will it cost anything? Well, I voted yes for something. Usually, a lot of times when you vote yes for something on your ballot, that means you're going to get charged something later. So if they vote yes for the aggregation on the ballot, will they see any charge later?
Yeah, this is one of those ballot issues. By voting yes, doesn't cost you anything, right? All you're doing is giving the city the authority to go down the process of seeing, does this work for the city? And as Wright said, there are several gates along the way. So it's just saying, yes, I want to give the city the ability to look at it, or no, we're not going to give the city the ability.
No,
to
we've
look.
mentioned that, but I want to make sure that it's clear, because when you're looking at a ballot, you have a lot of choices there to think about, and so this is something you can say yes. Yes just means we're going to look at and see if there's some more ways where we can save you money.
And the interesting, Dan, you might want to bring it up, because when we did a presentation, the timetable, it's not going to, if they pass in November, it's not going to happen like that.
Okay.
So why don't you kind of
So
give them an outline of
what'll
what
happen is, if it passes in November, the Board of Elections will take 30 days to even certify that it's passed.
Okay.
To back up 1 second, what you're talking about, many people, when they see issues, they think it's a tax. The most important thing to realize is this is not a tax. This just opens up the ability for Forest Park to go down the road. So once they've certified the election, we work with the city to come up with a plan of governance, and then that's all part of the certification process of the PUCO, along with all these other things. You have to present the ballot issues and a bunch of other forms that are not really important right now.
Sure.
And then it sits there for 30 days, and then we have to go out and start pricing it, and that takes some time. Then once the letters go out, that takes 21 days for the opt-out period. So if we really hustle, maybe May, but we should see something around June. But during the whole process between now and June, there'll be a lot of information that people can go to Wright's website and our website, and they'll be linked in the coming weeks, and get any energy aggregation information they may need. Okay. So when we do this, and the gas portion, if it passes, won't start probably till next November, because there's no reason to put Forest Park in any kind of a gas aggregation program until we kind of know what the prices are going to be at that time. So it's market based is some of the reason for it to hold it, but most of the reasons for the electric is all steps we have to take to get the city certified as an aggregator for the PUCO.
Now you see why it's so important to have people who know what they're doing, and I think the city, they vetted a couple different companies, and we're very pleased to be able to work with this group, Energy Alliances. They've been with us for a couple months now, and we're putting together information. Hopefully, residents will get information in the mail, just to let them know that there's a ballot coming. There will be stuff on the website, so they can go there, they can give us a call. And hopefully we'll send out these programs through email and stuff, and then the neighbors can forward it to their friends or neighbors, so that everybody knows what's going on, and then they can decide for themselves whether or not they want to support it.
And actually, Energy Alliances has worked with a lot of different towns on aggregations. So this is not a new project for you.
It's not. Between gas and electric, we manage over 60 programs.
Yeah, so you have, when it comes to, we have paperwork to file with the Public Utilities Commission. We have things to get certified. You know how this works.
Yep.
So that's a big help.
Big help, big
This is-
help.
Let's take a look at their specific ballot language, because we're going to see it, and like you said, it always looks like a tax. This is not a tax on the ballot. This is going to show up as issue 26 and issue 27 on the Forest Park ballots. And I'm just going to read this so they'll know what it's going to look like. Shall the city of Forest Park have the authority to aggregate the retail natural gas loads located in the city of Forest Park, and for that purpose enter into service agreements to facilitate for those loads the sale and purchase of natural gas, such aggregation to occur automatically except where any person elects to opt out. They're said pretty much the same. I won't do them both.
Right.
Yes or no. So looking at that language.
That would scare me to death.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all we really need to know about this is when we see issue 26 on the ballot or issue 27 on the ballot, yes means we get to pick. That's all we need to know about this, really, is that if we say yes, yes means the Forest Park can go ahead with Energy Alliances and
Develop
a program.
that meets those goals that we previously stated. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So they're going to get letters in the mail, and this is an example of what Norwoods look like. If this passes, they'll get a letter that says, hey, if you don't want to be in this program, send this back. And that's the short version?
That's the short version.
Okay.
Yep. As you can see, there is a kind of tariff on the bottom that can get sent back, or there's an 800 number. And as we said, with the ballot language too, there's a lot of words there that the way the Ohio codes are written kind of force you to kind of put it. So that's where, with conversations like this, with the website and the city being very educated, to kind of help people who may have questions about the letters and things to kind of walk through it, because a lot of that is set by the state to say it has to look and say these certain words.
And I think it's important to show an example of this letter. And again, this is Norwoods, but so Forest Parks will have that logo on it.
Right.
Because we do get ads from companies who are not part of the aggregation. They just want you to go ahead and use their service.
Between now and when this program starts, if it passes, every correspondence you get with regard to the program will have the Forest Park logo on it. So that's how you know it's the real thing. And those other stuff you get in the mail is just those one-off offers.
That's really important because it's easy for this opt-out letter to blend in. Now, if you do nothing with this opt-out letter, you're okay because you'll wind up in the aggregation.
You'll end up in the program.
Okay. It's really only if you, for some reason, really don't want to be in it, then this is your chance to say, I appreciate that you have this idea, but I'm not doing it.
Yep.
This is one of several. This is
Sure.
the one now, or down the road you can get out too.
But it is important to mention all these other solicitations because the ones that come without the Forest Park logo will come to your mailbox.
And have
a
different
lot.
rules attached to them.
Yeah. And Energy Alliance has made sure that the aggregation will not have a cancellation fee and won't jump up after 3 months and all these things like that. The ones you get in the mailbox might say, without the Forest Park logo, might say, wow, look at this really great rate we can offer you. They won't tell you how long they can offer it. And they won't just come in your mailbox. They'll come to your telephone also. So will Energy Alliance, will there be any phone calls about the aggregation?
No, will not.
Okay, so that's really important to know. If you get a phone call, automatically you know it's not from the aggregation, and you don't have to guess.
Or Duke.
Okay.
Because they'll allude to the utility, that
Okay.
they want to talk about your Duke bill, and people automatically assume that it's Duke calling.
Okay.
It's not. It's someone else.
It's someone else saying.
trying to get your account number.
Because if you give them a permission on the phone, they can switch you.
Yep.
And you might not even realize that you're not in the aggregation anymore.
Yep. Well, and I think that's an important point to make about the opt-out letters too. Is
Okay.
because people have switched on their own, because they may have switched without remembering or knowing, you could potentially have two neighbors. One person gets the letter and the
Right.
person next door may not. And that's another question that comes up to say, why didn't I get a letter? And as you sort of look through their bill, you may say, oh, they're with another supplier. They chose to do something else. So that's something to also keep in mind. Is you could potentially have people right next door to each other. One person may get the letter, one person may not, because that person didn't meet the kind of criteria that we talked about earlier in the program.
That's really important because we're talking about how after it passes, everyone will get this opt-out letter. But you already mentioned that people who are in the PIP program, the assistance program, will not. And also people who are already with another supplier will not. And most of the time you think of people who know they're with another supplier, but there are people that don't realize they're with another supplier because they got a phone call and they thought it was from Duke and they said, yeah, that sounds good. And they haven't really noticed that that's a separate little thing on their bill. So if folks get, it really is important to keep an eye on the website. Call Wright if you have any questions about have you sent out letters yet? Because once we get to that stage where letters are going out, and it's not for a little while yet, if you feel like you didn't get one, and you were excited about this aggregation program, you could be inadvertently with someone else.
Yes.
And then that'll be important to look at carefully to see if this someone else has a cancellation fee, or if you have to wait for that to end, and things like that.
We'll actually help you if you call Wright and Wright can't give them the answers that they want with regard to those termination fees. Say I'm in with a third-party supplier already, and my termination fee is $100, and it terms in 4 months. Maybe you let it run out before you get into the aggregation so that you don't waste that money. It's really, really important for those people that have already chosen a third-party supplier that want to be in the aggregation to make sure that they understand the fees they'll incur if they terminate, or if there are any. There may not be any, and they can jump straight over, and we're absolutely able to tell them how that works. But we just don't want people to say, this is great, this is a better price, then get into the aggregation, and then get some $250 fee on their bill.
Just to be really specific, kind of anything you write your account number on could get you switched. So keep an eye out for that.
Don't give anyone your account number, ever.
So whether it's over the phone or whether it's a form like this one that says clean energy selection form, fill in your account number.
So
that's the kind of thing.
In the aggregations, if they called us, many times I don't even ask for the account. I just say, what's your address? And I'll look and see if they're in the aggregation to try to avoid them having to even look it up, because everybody knows their address.
Sure.
Nobody knows their account number.
And then, of course, when you get those solicitations, they come with a form.
Right. Click one more time, though.
It shows you a whole lot of text on one little paper. But if you read that fine print, you can see what the rates are going to be, and they're really counting on you not reading that fine print.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of the programs in general, that the price and all the words in there, the words in there are probably just as important, if not more important than the price. So that's where we work with suppliers that offer clean terms and conditions, clean pricing, and just looking at the product as a whole, and not just price or not just terms and conditions. It's finding the best combination.
Okay. And not to knock other energy companies, but just to help people be aware that and that this aggregation program is researched. It really is engineered, knowing what the industry does and what's available and what's out there and how can we make the best for Forest Park residents.
And that's why we're doing it the third time, because it's been in existence for 15 years. It's got a track record that's hard to beat. And we've got experts now that have got experience in the field that can help individual communities develop these type of programs. So, now's a great time. If the city wants to do this, now's a great time because everything's at the peak.
Yeah.
And but again, this is their choice, and we're just trying to get the information out to everyone to make sure that they understand what they're voting on.
Absolutely. And the fact that so many communities that you're working with, but also so many communities that are right around Forest Park are already taking advantage of this. It's definitely time to make sure Forest Park residents also get to take advantage of this.
If they want to.
If they want to,
If they want to,
exactly.
right.
And of course, one last thing we've talked about, don't give out your account information. Solicitors can come to your door, but there's one specific thing in Forest Park. In Forest Park, they are supposed to get a solicitor badge. They're supposed to register. So you can ask for that.
Right. They're supposed to wear it. They're supposed to, when they come to the door, they're supposed to wear it. And it's a very thorough vetting. They're vetted by the police. They look at a lot of different things before they get that solicitation badge. And that's about the size. Well, that's awfully big on the screen, but they should be right there prominent. If they don't have it and they're trying to solicit you, just close the door.
Okay.
But they're not supposed to be in the city.
That's important to know for all topics. Energy aggregation is one of the things that brings it up because people remember the people coming to their door. But when people are coming to their door, they're not from your aggregation. And you can see if they are not wearing a badge, then they are not even registered with the city. Don't even talk to them.
Right.
Good to know.
And call the police.
Yeah.
Because they're not supposed to be in the city, and they're doing something that we don't know about or we haven't vetted, and it might not be good for the residents to be talking to these people because they might sign up for something that might not be kosher.
Yeah.
So, just call the police if somebody's walking around and knocking on doors, and then we'll check them out.
That's a good thing to know. I really appreciate you coming in today, all three of you. Rich and Dan and Wright coming in to make sure that we got a chance to talk about details. I know sometimes there's quick sound bites that go out about things, but we can't always take the time to sit and explain and talk about these things. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you for having
Is
us.
there anything you want to leave residents with before we wrap up?
We covered a lot.
We really did.
We did.
Yeah, just if they have any questions. I don't want people to have questions.
Okay.
So if they have questions, contact our office and we'll be back in touch with them if I'm not there.
Okay, Wright Quinn is at the Forest Park Environmental Awareness Office at the City Building.
Right.
Contact Wright if you have any more questions. And if he doesn't know, he's going to get to Rich and to Dan at Energy Alliances, and he's going to find out.
Right.
Also, make sure you are registered to vote, or this won't do you any good. You have to register by October 7th, I believe. And make sure you go vote.
Exactly.
Because that's how this is going to happen.
That's how
It's
it
going
works.
to vote yes on energy aggregation, and then the town can move forward and make this an option for residents.
Okay.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you.